What if I told you that the most powerful revenge isn't rage, it's silence? That the loudest comeback isn't words, it's walking away without looking back, not slamming doors, not screaming to be heard, not proving a point, just leaving, quietly, completely, and with your head held high. Because there comes a moment in life when you realize that not everyone deserves a reaction. Not every insult deserves a clapback. Not every betrayal deserves your tears. And not every goodbye needs closure. When someone hurts you, betrays your trust, disappears when you needed them most, or plays games with your heart, the first instinct is to try and fix it, to ask why, to seek justice, or to win back the respect you were never truly given in the first place. You might find yourself overthinking, rewriting messages, trying to decode their behavior like a puzzle that deep down you already know doesn't fit. But here's the truth. They already knew how much they were hurting you, and they still did it anyway. So, what do you do when words won't change the outcome? You stop talking, you stop explaining, you stop begging to be seen, you rise. You don't win by fighting for their attention. You win by withdrawing yours, by taking all the energy you gave them, every second, every thought, every ounce of your love, and giving it back to yourself, piece by piece, day by day. You reclaim your time, your dignity, your presence, because that's what they never expected. They expected you to wait, to chase, to check in, to stay stuck on a chapter they already finished reading. But the greatest revenge isn't wishing them pain. It's becoming so healed, so grounded, so unapologetically whole that they couldn't reach you even if they tried. You become the lesson, not by teaching it with words, but by being the evidence that losing you was the consequence of their choices. And when that silence hits them, when your absence speaks louder than your presence ever did, they'll realize you were never the one to lose. So if you're holding on, waiting for that message, that closure, that apology, this is your sign. Let go, not for them, for you. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I rise by releasing what no longer serves me. Let's get into it. Number 1, you reclaim the power they took from you. There's a quiet kind of suffering that comes with emotional limbo, the refreshing of their page, the late-night thoughts, the phantom hope that maybe today will be different, that maybe this time they'll realize what they lost. But here's what you need to understand. Every moment you stay tethered to someone who's already emotionally detached from you, you're leaking power, not because they're stronger, smarter, or better, but because you're still giving them mental and emotional access they no longer deserve. They may have walked away, but if you're still carrying the weight of their absence, they're still taking up space in your life, not physically, energetically. And that energy is sacred. It's the source of your healing, your progress, your future. Every time you rehearse that conversation in your head, every time you replay what you should have said or done, every time you keep your phone within reach, just in case. That's power being drained. Stoic wisdom tells us, if you wouldn't hand someone your body to control, why would you hand them your mind? Epictetus said, you become what you give your attention to. So, if all your attention is directed at the one who hurt you, you start to shape your identity around being hurt. But you are not the pain, you are the awareness behind the pain. And that awareness is where your power lives. You are not someone who needs to be chosen. You are someone who chooses. And when you decide to stop focusing on what left and start pouring into what remains, yourself, you shift from being a passive receiver of pain to an active creator of peace. There is no revenge more powerful than emotional indifference, not bitterness, not spite, stillness, because it takes nothing from them, but it gives everything back to you. So start where it hurts the most. Disconnect not out of pettiness, but out of deep self-respect. Block them, mute them, unfollow their world. Delete the thread you keep rereading. You don't need their digital ghost haunting your healing process. Every step you take to detach isn't weakness, it's strength in motion. Because when you remove your attention, you remove their access. And when you remove their access, you reclaim your power, all of it. Now drop this in the comments if you're ready to take it back. My energy belongs to me, and I protect it fiercely. Number 2. Moving on destroys the illusion of control. Sometimes the most painful thing isn't the breakup, it's the confusion that follows. The mixed signals, the delayed replies, the breadcrumbs of attention that feel like hope, but are really just control disguised as care. You begin to wonder if maybe it's your fault. Maybe they're just going through something. Maybe you need to be more patient. But deep down, you know the truth. They're not confused. They're comfortable. They like having you orbit their world, ready whenever they crave your energy, your validation, your presence, but with no intention of offering you anything real in return. They don't love you. They love the power they hold over you, the way one text can make your heart race, the way your silence gets broken the moment they come back around. That's not love, that's leverage, and they only have it because you haven't walked away yet. But when you move on, fully, completely, without announcement or explanation, you break that illusion. You shatter the silent control they thought they had over your emotions. Suddenly, they can't reach you. Suddenly, their usual tactics fall flat. And that silence, it starts screaming. Because power doesn't beg, power doesn't chase, power exits the room and doesn't look back. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." And moving on is one of the bravest acts of emotional rebellion there is. It's standing up and saying, "You don't get to manipulate me anymore. You don't get to hold pieces of me hostage. You don't get to toy with my time, my attention, or my worth." When you walk away from someone who thought they had you wrapped around their finger, you're not just walking away, you're freeing yourself from the invisible chains of emotional dependency. Stop explaining your silence. Stop justifying your boundaries. Some people don't misunderstand you by accident. They do it on purpose. Because the longer they keep you justifying yourself, the longer they keep you under their thumb. So instead, choose growth over games. Choose clarity over chaos. Choose peace over patterns. Walk away without slamming the door. Let your distance do what your words couldn't. Because when you move on, you don't just free yourself, you force them to face what they lost. And that is the kind of control they can't fake having anymore. Number 3, your growth becomes their regret. There's something powerful about outgrowing the very version of yourself that once tolerated their inconsistency, their silence, their indifference. See, while you're healing, evolving and rebuilding, they're stuck with the last image they had of you. Someone vulnerable, accessible, and unsure of their worth. But healing doesn't always make noise. It happens in quiet moments, in daily choices, in the silent decision to stop breaking your own heart, waiting for someone else to value it. And by the time they look back, expecting to find the old you, they're met with someone they can no longer recognize and no longer reach. That's the kind of growth they never see coming. Because people don't expect you to rise. They expect you to stay in the pain, to stay waiting, to stay wounded. But you don't owe anyone the old version of yourself just because they're more comfortable with it. You owe yourself evolution. You owe yourself elevation. You owe yourself freedom from the patterns that once kept you emotionally stuck. Revenge isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. It's not a staged comeback or a dramatic post. It's you showing up to your own life with presence, power, and purpose. It's you doing the inner work, learning discipline, creating boundaries, nurturing your peace, protecting your energy. It's you building something real inside yourself that no one can take away again. That's what they never counted on. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Don't let pain turn you cold. Don't let heartbreak make you bitter. Don't mirror the same emotional immaturity that hurt you. Instead, use that fire to light your path forward. Let their absence be the space you use to rediscover yourself, not for them to notice, but for you to be whole. So go build. Build a body that's healthy, a mind that's calm, a career that excites you, a lifestyle that reflects your worth. Not to impress, not to attract, but to evolve. Because when you grow in silence and protect your transformation, the day they come back around, you'll realize they no longer have access. Not because you hate them, but because you outgrew the version of yourself that needed them. And that's where the real revenge lives. Number 4, they expect your destruction, not your elevation. Here's the brutal reality most people don't want to admit. Not everyone who hurt you did it by accident. Some did it with precision, with calculation, with the quiet hope that it would break you, that you'd collapse, that you'd spiral into a version of yourself so consumed by pain that you'd never rise from it. It fed their ego to think they had that kind of power over you, to walk away as if you'd never recover, to discard you and assume you'd stay shattered. But the most poetic revenge is proving them wrong by becoming someone they never saw coming. When you choose to move forward, to build in silence, to elevate without needing validation, you dismantle the entire narrative they had in their head about you. You were supposed to beg, you were supposed to cry, you were supposed to be devastated without them, and instead you rise, not out of spite, but because your soul was never meant to stay stuck in someone else's chaos. That's the moment they feel the shift. Not because you screamed, but because your silence became undeniable proof of your power. Stoicism teaches us to master only what we can control: our thoughts, our choices, and our reactions. You don't have control over what they did, the lies, the betrayal, the abandonment. But what you do control is your next move, and your next move can be your best one. You can either stay in the narrative they wrote for you, or you can author your own comeback. That's the freedom you hold. That's the control they'll never steal from you. So stop rehearsing the pain. Start rehearsing the vision. Visualize that version of you who's healed, grounded, radiant, and self-possessed. See that person clearly. See their strength, their confidence, their peace. And then start showing up for that version in every single choice you make. What you consume, who you allow in, how you speak to yourself, how you spend your energy. That version is already inside you. You're not becoming them, you're revealing them. And while they sit there expecting to hear about your breakdown, they'll be forced to witness your glow-up instead. That's not revenge, that's transformation, and it's unstoppable. Number 5, emotional control is the highest flex. There's nothing more powerful than staying calm in the storm someone else tried to drag you into. When they expect you to explode, to break down, to beg for clarity or closure, and instead you respond with silence, with stillness, with presence. That's not weakness, that's dominance. Not over them, but over yourself. Because the truth is, pain wants a reaction. Hurt wants chaos. When someone triggers you, it's not just about the moment. It's about pulling you out of your power and back into a version of yourself you've already outgrown. But every time you choose not to take the bait, you take back control, losing your cool, chasing answers, over-explaining. That's not clarity, that's chaos disguised as desperation, and desperation never earns respect. But composure, emotional discipline, that earns you something better than attention. It earns you peace. When you can master your reactions, you become untouchable, because it means no one can take you out of your character without your permission. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." That's the essence of emotional mastery. It's realizing that the event didn't break you, your attachment to it did. It's not what they said, it's how much you believed it. It's not that they left, it's that you tied your worth to them staying. But once you reclaim your inner thermostat, you stop letting other people change your emotional temperature. And this is the flex. Walking away without announcing it, holding your boundaries without yelling them, letting people feel your absence without needing to explain your silence. That's grace under pressure. That's how real strength speaks. Not in loud declarations, but in unshakable self-respect. So, the next time you feel triggered, don't respond. Pause, breathe, observe. Hold that silence like armor. Let it be a mirror to their chaos. Because when you stop playing emotional chess with someone who only came to drain you, you win. You win by not attending the war they invited you to. If you're ready to own your emotional power, drop this in the comments. My peace is louder than their chaos. Number 6. Your silence forces them to face themselves. There comes a point when words do nothing, when explanations are wasted, when trying to make them understand only drains you further. That's when silence becomes your greatest weapon, not out of manipulation, but out of maturity. Because silence doesn't beg to be heard. It doesn't compete. It doesn't chase closure. It simply exits and leaves an echo that lingers far longer than any outburst ever could. When you stop speaking, when you remove your energy entirely, you remove their favorite excuse, blaming you. Now they're left alone, with nothing but the truth, no distractions, no justifications, just them, their choices, and the emptiness they created. That silence becomes a mirror, and mirrors don't lie. It forces them to look inward, and that reflection often hurts far more than any confrontation ever would. Because they can run from your words, they can argue, deny, deflect, but they can't run from themselves. Silence is not weakness, it's precision, it's surgical. It cuts through the noise and reminds them that you're not playing anymore, that your heart is no longer available for negotiation, that you've reclaimed your value by refusing to participate in your own mistreatment. There's nothing more disarming than realizing the person you thought would always be there simply isn't anymore. Stoic wisdom tells us that self-control is the ultimate form of strength, and silence is the proof that you're no longer controlled by emotion, impulse, or the need to be understood by someone who never truly listened in the first place. No goodbye text, no last call, no dramatic exit, just absence, just peace, just the quiet power of someone who finally chose themselves. They wanted a reaction, they expected one, but you gave them something far more haunting, the sound of nothing. And in that nothing, they'll find everything they tried to ignore. You don't need to tell them they lost something good. Your silence already did. Number 7, you build a life so full they become irrelevant. The real win isn't getting over them, it's getting back to you. Because the truth is, you didn't just lose a person somewhere along the way. You started to lose pieces of yourself, the passions you stopped pursuing, the goals you put on hold, the peace you sacrificed just to keep someone else comfortable. But healing isn't about waiting until you forget them. It's about remembering who you were before they ever entered the picture, and who you're still meant to become. You see, most people try to move on by running from the pain. But the real transformation happens when you stop running and start rebuilding. When you shift your focus inward and say, "What do I need to feel alive again?" Because that's where the magic lives. Not in revenge, not in rebound distractions, but in fulfillment. In a life so full of meaning that their absence doesn't even register as a loss anymore. Aristotle once said, "Happiness depends on self-sufficiency." That means your joy, your peace, your energy, it doesn't come from them. It comes from you, from waking up with purpose, from surrounding yourself with people who value your presence, from doing things that energize your soul, even if no one's clapping for you. That's how you make someone irrelevant, not by hating them, but by building a reality so vibrant they simply don't fit in it anymore. So here's your move. Make a reclaim list. Write down 5 things you used to love that you've pushed aside, things that made you feel creative, grounded, excited, or seen. Maybe it was journaling, hiking, learning something new, volunteering, starting that side hustle. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be yours. Then pick one and commit to it this week. No excuses, no overthinking, just start. Because when your life is rich with self-expression and aligned with your own values, you stop feeling the need to chase what doesn't deserve you. The goal isn't to replace them, it's to rediscover yourself. To feel so lit up from the inside that they become just another chapter you closed to write a better one. Number 8. Moving on ends. The cycle of emotional addiction. Let's cut the fluff. Sometimes it's not even them you're missing. It's the emotional roller coaster, the unpredictable highs, the sudden attention after silence, the sweet moments that made you feel seen, followed by the confusion that left you feeling small. That cycle, it's addictive. And like any addiction, it convinces you that chaos is passion and inconsistency is love. But it's not. It's just emotional conditioning. And every time you go back, you reinforce that pain is somehow part of love. It's not. The human brain gets addicted to unpredictability. The dopamine spikes when they randomly show up. The adrenaline rush when you don't know where you stand. But real connection doesn't leave you anxious. Real love doesn't make you guess. So when you decide to move on, what you're really doing is detoxing from emotional instability. And yes, that process is uncomfortable. Yes, there will be withdrawal. But healing isn't about feeling good. It's about feeling free. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." That includes their moods, their attention, their validation. You can't control any of that. But you can control whether you stay hooked to something that keeps hurting you. You can choose peace over patterns. You can choose stability over temporary highs. Here's how. First, acknowledge the emotional addiction. Call it what it is. Stop romanticizing what was actually toxic. Then grab a journal and start tracking the patterns. When did you feel anxious, ignored, elated, betrayed? Name the cycle. Then ask yourself, how do I want to feel moving forward? Secure, calm, empowered. Write that down, because what you name, you can change. You're not crazy, you're healing. You're not weak, you're rewiring. And every day you resist going back, you're breaking the pattern that tried to keep you small. Number 9, you become someone they can never reach again. There's a version of you that tolerated less, that shrunk to be accepted, that stayed silent to avoid conflict, that bent over backwards just to feel chosen for a moment. That version of you, while strong in their own way, is gone now, because real healing doesn't just mean letting go of them. It means shedding who you had to become just to survive that relationship. When you truly move on, you don't just walk away from them. You walk away from the patterns, the people-pleasing, the identity you built around proving your worth. And when they come back, and let's be real, they usually do, they won't be able to reach you. Not because you block them, not because you're holding a grudge, but because you've evolved into someone who no longer fits in the same emotional space where they used to have access. Stoicism is about becoming unshakable, anchored not by others, but by values, growth, and truth. And your truth is this: you outgrew the version of you that kept making excuses for their inconsistency. That version was a chapter, not your whole story. You honored them, you learned through them. But now it's time to close the page and step into someone new. So here's a powerful exercise. Write a letter to your old self, the version of you who stayed too long, who didn't know their value, who kept hoping they'd change. Thank that version, because they got you through the hardest parts. They kept your heart beating while it broke. But now, let them go. Release them with love, because they were never meant to carry you into this new season of strength, self-respect, and clarity. You're not bitter. You're just unavailable to the energy that once drained you. That's the real glow-up. Becoming unreachable, not in pride, but in progress. Number 10. Moving on makes you emotionally untouchable. The moment you stop craving what hurt you is the moment you step into true power. You no longer look at them with longing. You look at the experience with wisdom. That's the real shift. Not just getting over a person, but outgrowing the version of yourself that once tolerated emotional confusion. When you move on, you don't just say, "I'm done." You mean it deep in your bones. You don't want them back. You don't want their patterns. You don't want to repeat the lesson. You begin responding to life from clarity, not wounds. That's what makes you emotionally untouchable, not because you've built walls, but because you've built standards. You're not cold, you're just clear. You're not bitter, you're just better. The chaos they once brought, it doesn't tempt you anymore. The games that once kept you up at night, they bore you now. You've risen above the noise because your peace is now your priority. To be stoic is not to be emotionless, the wisdom goes, but to remain unaffected by emotion. That's the goal, not to suppress your feelings, but to rule over them with awareness, grace, and self-respect. You don't chase closure. You don't argue for your worth. You don't perform for approval. You simply walk with confidence and let your energy speak before you ever say a word. Start every morning with intention. Before the world demands anything from you, center yourself with this declaration: I don't chase. I attract peace, power, and purpose. I walk away from anything that confuses my value. Let that be your compass. Let that be your protection. Let that be your new normal. Pain will visit, no doubt, but staying in pain, that's optional. You don't need explanations. You don't need them to understand. What you need is to rise, on your own terms, with your head held high. Moving on isn't just revenge, it's a revolution. It says, you no longer define me. It turns heartbreak into healing, doubt into confidence, silence into power. That's the legacy you're building now. If you're sitting there feeling shattered, let this moment be your turning point. Not tomorrow, not when they reach out. Now, walk forward, even if your legs shake. Walk with purpose. Drop your favorite affirmation from this video in the comments. I want to see your power in words. Subscribe for more truth, more strength, and more of the fire you deserve to carry. And above all, never forget this. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. And that is how legends are made.